Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, and our friend Andrei Martyanov is back with us. Welcome back, Andrei.
My pleasure.
Andrei, let's get started with with this policy of the Trump administration in terms of tariffs that they're getting a lot
Okay.
of repercussions in the media, in the mainstream media. Here is what we've learned from the Chinese embassy in the United States. They're talking about if war is what the United States wants, be be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight it till the end. When you see China talking this way, what are they concerned of in your opinion?
Um,
Do they really believe that there's going to be something in Taiwan?
no, I first, the United States doesn't have posture, so to speak, now to do anything serious about Taiwan. They may start doing all kinds of provocations, or do their tour de force, demonstration of force, or things of this nature. I do not expect it to go hot war, and I understand that Trump understands that. And he was on the record many times that he doesn't want any war. He wants, peace and all that. And he may have a point. It doesn't mean that all of it is BS. Some things, in his speeches, they do. That's what he means, really. But yeah, for the United States, China economically is the national security issue. Because the United States wants to be the number one economy in the world, and it is not. By far, it is have been overtaken by China a long time ago, actually. So yeah, they will fight the tariff war, and make no mistake. While there are many people who have the world in Manichean, so to speak, framework like black and white, good and right, and wrong, and right or wrong or whatever, good and bad, and things of this nature. So it's difficult to say what are the precisely relations economically, because China has been already well, kind of disassociating itself from the United States market, which at some point of time was dominating Chinese economy, and China has an export-oriented economy. So there are a number of ways which United States can go here trying to counter this. I don't think so it will bring any kind of the positive result for the United States in the long run, but tactically, who knows? Tariffs have been always the main tool of the trade wars. So, and I don't think so, as I already stated, China and United States want to fight the real hot war, despite the fact that they still, building up forces and things like that. United States doesn't have resources to do that. But economically, yeah, he will be imposing tariffs, and I think that with disengaging from Europe and essentially putting Europe in the position that it will be forced to buy, for example, American weapons and American resources, he got himself a little bit of the realignment here, that he has a chance at least to influence Chinese in some way. How it will go, I don't know. I'm not in the position to forecast anything here, considering the complexity of the Chinese economy and political system. And so we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, United States is kind of digging in for now.
What do we know about the capabilities of the Chinese armies? Do they have how many nuclear, I don't know, bombs do they have? Is there any sort of information out there to access?
It's on paper they look impressive, but reality is, first, they have a much smaller nuclear potential. And actually, there are a number of their warheads, which are supposed to be on the missiles, they are actually disassembled, and they are in the storage facilities. So they do have nuclear potential, make no mistake. They have intercontinental ballistic missiles. They can reach pretty much anywhere in the United States, but it's much smaller than that of the United States, let alone Russia. And while many love to talk about how advanced Chinese technology is, it's nowhere near in terms of the, for example, hypersonic capabilities of Russia. So, but in terms of naval forces, while they build, and again, Chinese shipbuilding is a monster. Okay, I do not have enough descriptive powers to describe what Chinese shipbuilding is. It is monstrosity. It is, I mean, the largest shipbuilding in the world by far. So they can build a lot of ships, make no mistake. How good those ships are? Well, on paper, they look pretty impressive, you know, but in the end, you have to keep in mind that militarily China didn't have a real military engagement to even, so to speak, work out its own doctrinal and strategic views, let alone operational. They simply have no experience with it. So I know that there are some Chinese officers which went through the Russian Academy of the General Staff. Some of them most likely are present at the high operational level on the special military operation. But in the end, if God forbids something happens, especially in naval sense, United States submarine force, for all problems of the United States Navy, United States submarine force is still state of the art, make no mistake, and it has extremely well trained crews, and it's it wins over Chinese, really hands down, but again, as I already stated, we better not find out. Okay, so because nobody wants this conflagration, which inevitably will bring about possibly their escalation towards the nuclear threshold, and nobody wants that. But Russians do help Chinese on some critical technological issues, and again, one of the shocking news, which supposedly was shocking, a few years back when Mr. Putin came out and said it's not a secret, we helped China. Well, help basically build of the early warning system of the early warning missile attack system. So, and Russia doesn't do it just merely for how to say it, allied relations or what have you. There is a whole self-interest there too, because Russians want Chinese to be fully aware about any kind of the missile attack, obviously from the United States, in order not for them by mistake overreact, and then this whole thing goes out completely and Russians will get involved one way or another. So it is a complex situation there, which cannot be judged, again, in the black and white terms. It has to be, there are so many shades of gray there. So, and, well, what can I say? I still would say that if United States would go to war with China, it will be extremely devastating on both sides. But in the end, I would think that in the end, Chinese Navy, most of its surface fleet will be, not all, but most will be sunk, So that's what I think.
But the question would be that the United States is going closer to the China's border, not China is getting to
Yeah,
China.
oh, absolutely,
That
absolutely.
would put China, it put the United States in a much weaker position to fight against China.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And I'm pretty sure that whatever is happening on the military level, which is very classified, obviously, between Chinese and Russians, Russians would want to make sure that China has the also capabilities which are guaranteeing. Make no mistake, it's not like, oh yeah, we'll give you some, raw technology which never went through any kind of the combat, proving or operational matters, related to the use of it or tactically. No, this is about, okay, what can you counter it with? And if you take a look at the kind of, those telltale signs, I think so that in the end, Russians may provide China with combat proven at some point of time. I don't know how, but it could be. It's probable. How high probability? I don't know. I'm speculating here. But Chinese may get their hands on Russia's first generation of the hypersonic weapons, for example. How it will go, we'll see. maybe not. But again, there is a very close coordination and contacts between Russian Ministry of Defense and Chinese Defense Ministry. And obviously they're not sitting there discussing latest movies, so they are doing some things which are, like coordinating things. That it is well-known fact that on the exercises, Russians and Chinese are actually join their formations or units, and they operate as the Russian-Chinese common unit, like common battalion, so it's that type of the coordination.
Andrei, with what we've seen so far in terms of the situation in Ukraine and the conflict, and some sort of conflict between the United States and European countries, how do you see the situation that NATO is in right now? Is Trump tearing NATO apart? Is Donald Trump saying goodbye to NATO? It's saying goodnight to NATO. What's your understanding on the way that he's trying to deal with NATO and the concept of NATO?
I have to go here with my friend Scott Ritter and quote him, albeit not only him, but me and other people and our friends. We've been talking about this for a while. I was talking about this for years. Europe is the enemy of the United States. You have to understand that. And suddenly, some people in Washington figured that out, and especially Trump administrations. Do not forget where the Russiagate originated from. Well, on the one side, Clinton and Obama, all kinds of this, criminals, basically. On the other hand, this was MI6 operation, essentially, okay? So United Kingdom was actively involved in the actually sabotaging Trump's first term. He never forgot it. He almost ended up in jail. So, and in this respect, he is the real estate broker, essentially, the owner, what have you, estate developer. He says, yeah, just do it yourself, guys. Because in the end, there is no denial that everything what was happening positive in Europe in the last 80 years, from restoration after the World War II to the relatively, very good standard of living, especially starting from the 1960s, it was based on two things. United States shield, which it was providing by its majority of the expenses within the NATO, and Soviet and Russian cheap energy. These are two factors which were defining the good living of Europeans. The fact that they were freeloaders we understand it's all false pretext. Soviets never wanted to attack Europe, and they just were worrying mostly of the NATO attacking Soviet Union. But we have to keep this in mind. So Trump, once the United States removed by Biden administration this whole Russian cheap energy, and then the United States begins to withdraw in terms of the providing the bulk of the defense, including the placing there, which was very large contingents of, even British, which today are nothing. They're just clown military power. They had their Army of the Rhine, AOR, there was a serious, at some point of time, the highest was 80,000 people. The lowest was 52, which went by the end of the NATO. They had the whole army there, in Rhine, So this is all over. And Trump knows that Europe doesn't have capabilities. So guess what? It also lays down the foundation, because obviously Ursula von der Leyen, who would know crap from crapola, she can declare whatever she wants. But Europe doesn't have technological resources to even provide for the proper weapon systems, let alone quantity, which are required for the war of 21st century. That opens... It already had been open, but that opens a larger, so to speak, opening, for American weapons going to Europe, So, and when you look at this, there you go. The NATO is there. As even Colonel McGregor stated, in 1997, he says, it was already clear that NATO was a dead man walking, So, and the only thing they can do is to invent the Russian threat, which Russia is not a threat, And once you look at this, yeah, why should United States bear this burden when the United States can indeed, as Mr. Trump actually was talking yesterday during his speech to the joint session of Congress, that when this money could be spent well in the United States, including developing weapons, which Europe will buy. So there you go. Win-win situation, if you wish. And he was correct. He was absolutely correct. He stated that Europe is buying more Russian, carbon carbohydrates, whatever, hydrocarbons, more than it ever did. So they cannot exist without energy from Russia and the United States. Simple as that. But they are not buying this anymore for this wonderful, very low, very competitive prices. Because of that, the economy is not competitive already. Look at Germany. Practically everything they produce is overpriced and junk, by the way, like their cars. And so this is just reality. And I think Trump understands this reality.
When you hear that Ursula von der Leyen is talking about a plan to increase EU defense spending by 1.5% of GDP, is that a reaction to what Donald Trump is doing, or is it something to get aligned with Donald Trump's policy in Europe?
No, well, J.D. Vance went on record, I believe, a few days ago. He stated that in reality, behind the closed doors, they are just begging. They are scared crapless. They are scared to the point of soiling their underwear. And von der Leyen, she's an idiot, as most of the European leaders are. They're cretins, basically, if you look attentively at their, and the population continues to elect them, globalist parties of all kinds of things. But they're scared. Europe doesn't have resources, as I already stated. In terms of weaponry, for example, they are lagging behind Russia, not by years, by generation or two. So if you think so that they can cover up with the present energy prices, they are not coming down. Those energy prices are not coming down. If Europe decides to somehow restore relations with Russia, there are only two countries, well, actually three. Turkey is not exactly Europe, but it certainly is a NATO member. But there's only Slovakia and Hungary, which are continuing to receive proper pricing, which is privileged pricing. The rest, Europe is not going to get it anymore. And so if they want to produce somehow something, good luck with that, guys, because the process of deindustrialization is actually gaining the steam. Starmer was basically begging Trump not to impose tariffs on United Kingdom. Because once the tariffs are imposed, for example, on the United Kingdom, it basically collapses. It implodes, economically. And the same is going with Europe. And Trump has this whip in his hands. And yeah, von der Leyen, who is, well, she's certified imbecile and vile person. You can take a look at the results of her being Minister of Defense, I believe, and what happened to Bundeswehr. It doesn't exist as a real fighting force. So yeah, good luck. What can I say? And I don't see anything happening there.
Yeah, I would wonder what would be the reaction coming out of Germany and France and other European countries when they see that Donald Trump is imposing 25% of tariffs on them while they're not imposing any sort of tariff on the United Kingdom.
Well,
that's so tricky. That's so
it's a complex game in subduing Europe, because the United States is weakened, greatly weakened. Make no mistake. If you look at the national debt and all, the United States has a lot of problems, big problems. Some of them existential problems. But still, it is still superpower. Okay, Europe is not. When Jeffrey Sachs talks about it, oh, you have $20 trillion GDP. No, they don't. all this GDP is a fiction, the figment of imagination of the usually people, useless professors from the economic faculties, departments from Harvard, Princeton, or what have you. Reality of the real economy of Europe, if you take out some exceptions like Airbus, which is a great company, but or you take out Siemens, which still exists, but when you look attentively at Germany's chemical industry, it is being killed. BASF, look attentively what is going on, and things of this nature. They cannot even launch the manned space, space mission. There are only 3 countries which do that. These are, United States, Russia, and China. So, and they are not in the same league. And especially when you begin to see now those cracks in the European Union, hey, they hated each other for centuries. So guess what? That's why 2 world wars came out of Europe. It wasn't United States or Russia who incited this. These were Europeans who hated each other. They were on their throats. In the 20th century, they produced 2 world wars. They killed 70 plus million people. They created concentration and death camps. Not only Germans. It was Europe which was doing this, which cooperated with Hitler, for example, And when you look attentively at this, who cares about what they want or what they plan? Because the way it existed, Europe existed, it has to die. And European Union eventually will dissolve itself because NATO is dissolved itself, because European Union is economic manifestation of European part of NATO. United States decided what it was supposed to decide long time ago, to get the hell out and let them deal with this. How they will deal with this, that's the totally different story. But they are acrimonious, type of people there. They will be at each other's throats in no time, as the COVID, showed. Remember, British even wanted to do their military operation of stealing masks and vaccines from Dutch. It's unbelievable. Obviously, military told this idiot Boris Johnson that it will be extremely risky. But remember how they were stealing those masks and other things from each other during the COVID? That's what Europe is. So, and that it will what it will become, and eventually it will turn into the 2nd tier economic entity because it will be living as the second world.
If we assume Europe can compare it to what China is today, is a tiny scale of China. The reality of China is a huge engine that needs China is a huge engine that needs fuel to work to produce. Europe was in the same position for many years, and they didn't respect their position. They didn't understand what they were doing for many years. They were producing the situation, the economy of Germany, how much that was dependent on the Russian oil, on the Russian gas. And here comes the question. When you see, Andrei, when you compare the behavior of China to what we are witnessing in Europe, China has Iran, Russia, Saudi Arabia, all these countries that are the main source of gas and oil. And on the other hand, Europe, what did Europe do? They just separated themselves from these sources. How they can produce anything?
Oh, no, they can't. I mean, as I already stated, it's going to be overpriced junk. There's a complex issue, collection of problems which comes with this, from training the proper labor force, from the technical, specifically high-level technical education required from the modern labor force. But what we see what yesterday, Bosch, one of the biggest, they are not only suppliers of the automotive parts in Germany. No, they also produce all kinds of washing machines, all kinds of industrial equipment and things of that nature. Well, guess what? They are laying off 10,000 people. So that's what you need to know about all that. They are not coming back. Those jobs are not coming back. Those jobs migrate to the east, to Asia, and they migrate partially to the United States. How successful this migration, or as they call it in the United States, onshore, will happen. It's not as big as everybody hoped for, but still some of it trickles down to the United States too. Europe, yeah, I am writing this for more than 10 years. It's a launch. Europe is a launch. They don't have resources. They don't have now, they lost their mind. They're mentally not well, they're still living this wokeness. They still believe in 660 genders. They look at the opening of the Olympics in Paris. This is Satanism, plain and simple. All of whatever they do is always end up with some satanic outcome, So they were the ones who lied. They betrayed Russia in their millennium level type treason. Russians are not forgiving this thing. And what is most important, Russians do not consider themselves European people anymore. Overwhelming majority of Russians. This is what Europe achieved. And this is just the start. Things will get much, much worse, and they may never get better. And it will be relegated, as already stated, to the second tier economic power. It still retains some technological competences. But other than that, when you don't have resources, you don't have resources. The world, the modern world, the industrial revolution, which brought up to us incredible development, technological development, and actually raised the standard of living for many people. It requires energy, a lot of it. Europe has none. And as such, they are relegated.
They're in a very difficult and challenging situation right now, not only because of what has happened in Ukraine and Russia, and because of what the new administration is talking about and the policy coming out of the United States. Here is what Donald Trump said, Andrei, last night in his address to the Congress.
Has sadly spent more money buying Russian oil and gas than they have spent on defending Ukraine by far. Think of that. They've spent more buying Russian oil and gas than they have defending.
And this is the reality that they don't want to understand. He's just saying it. This is the reality that they want to put sanctions. They want to go after Russia, put troops in Ukraine, fight in Russia. At the end of the day, they have to buy Russian gas and oil.
Well, the new news are coming through. And again, we have to keep this in mind in terms of how Russians and Americans now interact. United States, I made a video yesterday about it, that when Vladimir Putin a year ago talked to Tucker Carlson, and he said, it's for, West decide how they want to save face. It's how it will continue. United States evidently got the message. Europeans will not. They naturally predisposed to hatred for Russians. Majority of populations in Europe consider Russians, just absolutely alien, and some consider Russians as subhumans and Slavs in general. So you cannot fix that, you cannot fix this culture there. So, but about this, some people want to say now that it is United States wants to buy Nord Stream 2, restore it, and then of course, Russia will provide the gas if they want to, 3 times the price, maybe 5 times the price they had it before. So it's so simple, it's you cannot go out spitting into the face of the person in real life and then demanding favor from that sense. The real person will just basically, beat the crap out. If they're real men, beat the crap out of us, if we go out and spit to this man's face. But that's not Europe. They still believe that they're so incredible, that their crappy, dirty cities are somehow still, attraction for many. For some are, make no mistake. But remember this, it's still there. It is called the Paris syndrome. It especially affects Asian tourists. No, this is a real deal. You can look it up. People, especially Chinese, the Chinese rebuilt a mini Paris with the actual Eiffel Tower, and I don't know why this. They still worship this, crap from Europe. But all those Chinese, Japanese, South Korean tourists, they look at Paris and those pictures, and they just dream about this city of love and all. So they fly in as the tour, whatever, go the cruise ship, and then they move, go to France, and then they drive to Paris. They get to Paris and like stunned, because it's nothing like what is in it. It stinks, narrow streets, dirty, crime. It's just like Eiffel Tower is nothing special. And this becomes the Paris syndrome. They're like, this is not what it's on the pictures. Of course, it is not. It's the same like Dubai. Dubai is for people who have no internal culture. They don't understand what they want in real life, what real value and the beauty is. So they have this, huge shopping mall, in desert, and people go there. Okay, if I want to see the skyscrapers, I can go to New York or Moscow. I can. It's just, if I want shopping mall, there's shopping malls near me. So that's the whole thing. And people still were living in this consumer overconsumption matrix. And then suddenly, when the reality, and especially economic reality, will begin to knock on the door, it's already knocking, many people will have their delusions dissipated, to put it mildly, and they will live in the cognitive dissonance. And that what is going to happen to Europe. But the case now is to contain Europe, for them not to continue again with what they were doing all the time, what's called Drang nach Osten. Go to the, march to the east. This time, Russia has the capability, for the first time in 1200 years, to turn Europe within 15 minutes into the parking lot, together with every forces they will decide to, collect to go to the east. And believe me, it's coming. They will be brainwashed and told to their population that all their problems with the economic state, with their, they are becoming now poorer, much more poorer, because of Russians. And then America will come second, and they will decide at some point of time, we have to go and get those Russians, get those resources. This is why, for example, UK behaves itself like the clowns that they are, because they bet the farm on this, victory of Ukraine and NATO over Russia, and that Russia will be split and they will have the access to those resources. You cannot fix stupid, and Europe is downright stupid, and all indications are there.
What do you make of the way that Donald Trump is insisting, is pushing so hard toward a making deal between the United States and Ukraine in terms of the minerals and rare earth, while it seems that there is nothing coming out of Ukraine?
No, it's all PR.
The minerals are located in the eastern part. I would want to know why is he talking a lot about that? What does that mean for a Ukrainian settlement?
No, it's nothing. It's all PR, but it's done primarily to placate some segments of the American public, for example, when what is happening today, like he withdraws their, steadily support from Ukraine, that he says, oh, you see, they didn't sign this agreement and things of this nature. It's all PR. It's all, come on, it's not even serious to talk about it. But again, if anybody listens to Vladimir Putin, few days ago, when he was talking to Mr. Zarubin, official Kremlin correspondent, and he gave an interview to him, he dropped the bomb there. He said, but yeah, we may, with foreign partners, including Americans, we may allow joint development of those resources in Donbass and Novorossiya. This was a bomb. I mean, because obviously establishment media are stupid in the West, they're stupid anywhere pretty much. They miss this thing. Do you know what Novorossiya is? It's from Kharkov to Odessa. Pretty much. So, and Mr. Putin says, sure, yeah, come on in and we'll discuss this, So that tells you pretty much the strategic conception of Russia with the special military operation. And Russians, as they already stated, there will be no freezing. The special military operation continues, but there is a communication. There is definite channel of communications between Washington and Moscow, and it is being coordinated, I'm thinking, to a degree, because United States, okay, let's put it in the blunt terms. The war is lost in a special military operation. Europe is desperate and they in a full panic mode. United States also understands that. And so they're talking about what Vladimir Putin was stating to Tucker Carlson, no less, whom obviously Mr. Trump knows extremely well. And they have the communication between them. When he said, "It's you decide how you want to save the face." So Americans came to Russians, most likely, and said, "Okay, we know it was such a screw up of the historical proportion. How are we going to get out of it?" And Russia said, "Okay, let's do it this way." And do not forget, I repeat it non-stop. Superpowers, they move in a different plane. They move in a different, how to say it, universe, if you wish, because they are responsible in many respects for the modus vivendi. What is modus vivendi? Live and let live. Because in this case, can Russia humiliate the United States? Well, Russia already humiliated the United States, but Trump at least has the great excuse. That was Biden's war. That was Obama's war. I'm different. We're a different country now. And that works. And Russians say, okay, yeah, let's start doing this. And then we'll take it from there and we'll restore things. Europe can go and screw itself. Nobody cares about it anymore. And that's the superpower talking, because Russia and the United States can obliterate world many times over, just like literally nothing will live, because this is how much power, and especially, nuclear power, they have. And so that's modus vivendi. Superpowers must, in the 21st century, as was the case with the development of the nuclear weapon, to provide this modus vivendi between themselves. Otherwise, our world goes haywire, as you saw yourself with the Biden administrations. Those idiots could have brought the world on the verge of the nuclear exchange, of which I warned nonstop. I wrote 4 books about it. So now we have the different set of circumstances, and all this, including this deal, whatever the deal, it's not a deal, 2-page document. This is not, it's nothing. So it's all the cover and PR to allow United States to disengage, which already is happening. And that's the game. And there are signs there which are more important than whatever some idiot from CNN or Fox or Wall Street Journal understands. They don't. They have no real Russia experts in the United States. And so what happens is what we have, all this plays. There is a school of thought now among especially my friends who are senior officers, in Russian armed forces and all. They think too that it was in many respects staged and in coordination, this whole, cluster coitus with the Oval Office and Zelensky performance. And today, looks like the United States indeed withdraws this critical C4 ISR, command, control, computers, communications, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Without it, the armed forces of Ukraine become just basically armed formations without any command and control. Russians call it боевое управление, combat control altogether. So yeah, and that's it. This is what was needed to move forward.
It seems that the deal that Donald Trump is talking about is happening, but not between the United States and Ukraine. It's happening between the United States and Russia.
Yeah.
What do we know about that, Andrei?
We know that there is a channel of communications. It's now established fact, which is definitely not what is public. Okay, this channel of communications is not public. It is not. We do not know what they are talking about. We can only, surmise, if you wish. We can extrapolate from the outside signs of it. So, and this will be, there were some stunning statements by Trump, for example. He says, why don't we join forces in this, Arctic route, Russian Arctic route? Like, okay, well, and you know what? It's well-known fact. The American companies many of them, are on the high start, not lower start, but high start position to re-enter, Russian market, especially in the strategic sense. And Russians say, yeah, sure, we never denied anybody, if it's good economy, sure. And do not forget, for the United States to, especially after this whole harebrained scheme failed and was defeated by Russian army, they sanction and defeat Russian army, and then Putin regime collapses, we go in, we establish, install our puppets, and they split Russia, and we have all access, to resources. United States needs resources, definitely. The United States has some resources, but by far not all. And they're interested in Russian resources, but obviously Russia is not going to give it them. It's going to be some kind of joint ventures if they want to. Sure, come on in, fair share, so let's do it this way. And they want it because this is one of the factors which might help United States to, with all gigantic economic problems United States has, especially its national debt and basically the diminishing of the dollar as the reserve currency. So it is one of the ways of the path for actually to help United States to deal with this, which United States will have to deal with it because it's coming. Nothing we can do about it, and economically, and we know national debt is 34 trillion now. So the servicing of that alone is actually the size of almost United States budget. So it's a strong impetus for United States to talk to Russians, and Russians say, sure, why not? Just again, superpowers, they move differently. Their logic is different. Modus vivendi of superpowers is different.
Andrei, if that happens, that would be huge, even greater than what it. If you remember, Vladimir Putin was asking in the recent, previously about joining NATO. This is the nature of the relationship of the United States and Russia, which would go under huge changes. How do you see that would, if that happens, if we assume that would happen between the United States and Russia, is that going to change the calculation on the part of the decision makers in the United States and decision makers in Russia, which would bring peace? I would put it, I would emphasize that this would bring huge changes that would benefit peace in the region, and would bring these two superpowers in some sort of mutual beneficial relationship between the United States and Russia for a long run, as we know that AI and semiconductors are the future for us.
It's not going to be, how to say it, friendly relations. United States still remains Russia's enemy. Make no mistake. Russia, United States, by the nature of its not society, political system and economic system, which is very corporate, is interested in the new markets. It's just that at this day of 2025, Russia is much stronger militarily than the United States could be, and they cannot overcome this. So what's left, as I already stated, it's not. It's modus vivendi. It's literally live and let live. It doesn't mean that Russia and United States are competitors, period. Nothing could be done about it. Nothing. It's like, two big guys, and each with his own, idea about the supremacy, not supremacy, but Russians are not expansionist power. Russians realistically are actually now holding their fingers crossed. Thank God we got rid of the Soviet Union especially in terms of the Middle Asia. But Russia is gigantic, whereas Russia has its hands full developing itself. If you look attentively at how the boom in the highway construction, all kinds of things, if you look attentively at the Russian economy, it's just absolutely, in the overdrive. And but there is no barrier which can prevent United States and Russia cooperate on the number of the critical issues. And we can see now this critical issue, which is, of course, framed as Mr. Trump's idea of peace and stopping the war in Ukraine, which didn't stop. And it will not stop until Russia achieves its objectives, but at least he will have excuse and some kind of the cover, diplomatic cover, saying, you see, I did everything I could, but and there certainly has to be peace. There can be no war between superpowers. Okay, simple as that. And will new generation of American political class emerge? Hopefully, because what we have even today, large portions of Congress, for example, and those special interests, those ethnic lobbies, ranging from obviously AIPAC, American Israeli Political Action Committee, those Israeli forces, those many Arabs who are involved there. You saw yourself what Ukraine, how Ukraine achieved some kind of influence there. So those people in US Congress, very many of them are corrupt, utterly. They have to go. So has to go there, basically, what is conceived as essentially the suicidal ideology by the Democratic Party. They have to go. A new generation must emerge. But it's going to take time. So it's not instant. What is instant, what we know, Russia already won the war. As I already stated, we are now in the arrangement phase. And now, after not even the stop of the military aid, Russians can destroy whatever, it will be thrown there. And then it's the fact that now their targeting and recon have been withdrawn. You cannot fight the war without it. And so, yeah, we'll see now what is going to on the front. But when you have those neo-Nazi, Azov and other neo-Nazi forces, as for people who do not know, I obviously have the access to, sources, and they are in panic mode. They literally scream that the front is collapsing, and it was collapsing. Listen, you have to understand, there were 3 lines of defense. Russians are penetrating the last line of defense. After that, it's the operational space. And it's still going to be a fight, but when you look at the dynamics of the losses, and we now have full confirmation today, they threw 18-year-olds into what is whatever the last remaining teeny-weeny line of communications in line of the logistics, essentially, in course. They will be killed very fast. They are not combat material, as you might understand. They're children. And so that tells you everything you need to know. And yeah, it's pretty much decided. It has been decided for a while. It's just that, considering the impact of the establishment media in the West, which are war criminals, most of them are, they were basically spewing this propaganda from Kiev regime, and then suddenly now they have to look at the real picture, and things are different. Actually, quite opposite to what they were reporting. And yeah,
I don't know what do they want to do with Zelensky, because it seems that he turns to be the big problem in Ukraine. And do you think that are we going to see a presidential election in the near future in Ukraine?
I don't know.
May bring some sort of change. We may understand what's going on between Russia and the United States.
No, Ukrainians will still elect the warmonger who will be saying that, I want a peace. Well, they now want peace. Before that, they really wanted to kill Russians, believe me, majority of that population. So it doesn't matter. Russians will talk, but this time it will not be, Minsk or Istanbul. The parameters of existing of the remains of Ukraine are well known. It will be neutral, fully demilitarized and fully denazified territory. Russians may leave the Kiev to its own devices and whatever is around it. They will have police force, and then, of course, the whole education programs, everything will be changed, And again, do not forget, Mr. Narishkin, chief of the Foreign Intelligence Service, invited Polish Hungarian and Romanian historians to Moscow to discuss the legitimacy of Ukraine owning those Romanian, Hungarian, and Polish, well, the Western Ukrainian enclaves. Poland already is ready to get back their what is called Vostochny Kresy, Eastern Kresy, Eastern territories. And Eastern territories, of course, what? Good old Polish city of Lemberg, known today as Lvov, or Lviv, as they call it. There is a lot of things which are going on, which you literally cannot keep up with them anymore. Because I pulled up in the morning my email, and it's just like, good Lord, I mean, how long this will continue, because you literally have to readjust yourself or retune yourself constantly, every, not 24, 12 hours, because there so many things are happening. But the most important thing happened today, which is even more important than stopping the military aid. It is the stopping of the ISR. And that's how they were killing, for example, civilian targets. That's what they were doing. Now they will not have it. And we'll see if Mr. Musk will turn off Starlink. We'll see.
At least yesterday and today, we've learned that the United States, Trump has decided to halt the military and intelligence provided to Ukrainian and to Ukrainian army. Do you think that the whole that would be so ridiculous? The whole story of the deal between the United States and Ukraine was because they wanted to just put an end to the supply of weapon and intelligence to Ukraine.
Could be, very well could be. I'm not saying it's 100%, but it looks very likely. As I already stated, there is a school of thought, even among people who have the enormous military and intelligence experience, even in Russia, who say it was staged. I mean, staged in a sense that there are no idiots, they know, as we've been talking today with my friend, he's a colonel, and he's like, listen, they knew the psychotype of Zelensky. They knew he's a druggie and he is a clown and so they knew how to get him going, from the get. Trump, he's a showman. He was on shows for 20 years. Okay, well, you cannot deny that. J.D. Vance obviously is a very smart guy. They literally played this idiot, and there you go. And suddenly you have this all happening. And make no mistake, if you look attentively, remember Keir Starmer and his bunch of the nincompoops from, the 10 Downing Street from London arrived? Not for a single moment was Trump tete-a-tete with Starmer. It was all only in the Oval Office, all for the public, no personal communications, just all in there. So it is all deliberate, it is all deliberate. And and for Ukraine, as I already stated, the United States seems to be at this stage, I'm not saying it's 100% correct. Again, do not quote me on that, but it looks like the United States in the disengagement mode. Can it change in the nearest future? Absolutely. Knowing flamboyant and narcissistic nature of Trump, and who knows what else there, but it can change, obviously. And then suddenly we'll say, yeah, you know what, it was all screw up, it was something, But the logic of the circumstances dictates for the United States to, if it wants to retain its superpower status, is to disengage now, because otherwise it will be catastrophic on such a level that there will be no saving face at all. And that considering the hysterical nature of the political class in the United States and them being very, very uneducated on the matters of war and peace, they might go hysterical and we might have the situation aggravating to real serious, thresholds. Nobody wants that who are any normal person in Washington or in Moscow. And so that's what we observe now. And the same is the play with Europe. How it will play out, of course, we have to wait and see. And that is why I always say that I hate to give any kind of forecasts. I'm not the crystal ball guy. I'm just looking at the, circumstances surrounding the events. But they are very interesting and peculiar. And the fact is, they are unprecedented. So
Andre, the other dimension of what's going on in the new sort of policies in Washington would be what would be the implication of what's going on, a Ukrainian settlement, the influence of a Ukrainian settlement on what's going on between Iran and Russia and in the Middle East. How do you think that would play out? It seems that Russia is just prepared to be part of negotiations that Iran would do with the United States. I would say Iran is happy with that. They would be so
Yeah,
much comfortable with that because
yeah, absolutely.
Russia is their strategic friend. And how do you see the way that we can understand the situation right now in the Middle East in terms of the relationship between Iran and Russia?
Oh, they are strategic. They are extremely important for the both sides. And there are obviously a bunch of the idiots, who are like this Mahmoudian professor I spoke about from Florida University, who says that, yeah, Russia will exchange Iran. No, Russia will not exchange Iran for anything. And immediately when he wrote this piece of garbage, basically, which is, it looks like this Quincy Institute, they're just recycling the same bunch of the idiots, primarily 90% of them, they are from this swamp, so-called scholars in nothing. Reality is they need to study Russia to understand that Russia is not betraying Iran. Iran is a critical part of the geopolitical structure which Russia builds in Eurasia, and its strategic partner. And fact is, again, look attentively at development of the North-South corridor. Iran is the critical part of it, together with Azerbaijan. And then you have the situation with, if you look attentively at the Astrakhan, the very north of Caspian Sea, good old city of Astrakhan in Russia. Astrakhan shipbuilders are cutting the metal for those numerous containers, Caspian containers. Guess what? They will be all going to the Anzali to be delivered to them, both to Iran and then to the Indian Ocean. And so it's like some people who begin to say that Russia will exchange, Iran for some perks. What perks? Russia is completely independent from the United States and the West, essentially. So Iran is, we will see people saying that on the 19th of March, there is a huge announcement coming from Iran. What is the huge announcement? Su-35s in Iran? Who knows? I don't know. Russians and Iranians were doing this in a very interesting way. And so, Iran is a strategic partner. And while definitely countries are culturally different, but there's no doubt that there is a huge understanding between two parties that they are strategic friends, and that will stay such way. And in this case, Russia being a broker, Iran knows Russia will be honest broker. And not only that, but it gives their, so to speak, gravitas to the whole, negotiation between United States and Iran. So you see, it's all kind of connected, all those things which started in Ukraine. Now, the question, and this Mahmoudian guy says, oh, yeah, Russians and Ukrainians were close because of Syria. Remember when the Assad government fell? And it fell, that's the whole story why it fell. Russians actually helped to evacuate some Iranian forces from using the transport, airlift and things of this nature. So, but Russian bases are still in Syria. They are there, both Khmeimim and Russians fly missions and things of this nature. So it's, how to put it, it's a complex issue there. So, and Syrian government, whatever it is, Syrian government today, they say, we want those bases there. They just want to discuss, the proper scale of things. But no, we want bases there. Okay, Russians will negotiate. It's fine. Russia will talk to devil if need be, as long as there is a fair solution to anything, And what can I say? We have this very close ties with Iranians, and I think so they will grow even stronger. And I think Iran is quite happy with them, So, and so are Russians. What can I say?
Not only that, but also I would mention the risk of terrorism in that region.
Oh, absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
that would bring these two together. It's a huge security problem for both of these countries.
Especially Sunni Islamic fanatics. They are the threat, always are. And again, ISIS was kicked out of Syria by joint effort of Russia and obviously Iranians. And yes, this will be a persistent threat and it will need to be dealt with. And there is also the issue of Afghanistan, but Russians are trying to kind of play Taliban. Obviously, there are some things which Russians cannot allow, like treating women like cattle in Afghanistan. So, but yeah, it's a complex issue. But again, Russia has top-notch diplomats, and Iranians know what they're doing. So we'll have to wait and see. It's the problem which will take a long time to resolve.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrei, for being with us today. Great pleasure as always.
My pleasure, as always, anytime.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.